Welcome to the Simply Real Life podcast. I'm Sarah, the founder of Simply Real Health, here to help you simplify, amplify, and elevate your life. This show is for those of you who want the real talk on how to live a more intuitive and intentional life, a life that's healthy from the inside out, and one that feels more effortless, aligned, simple, and more alive. We cover it all, from health, wellness, mindset, motherhood, daily habits and rituals, to business and relationships, creativity and growth, and tiny tricks to feeling your best, and the energetics behind it all filled with personal stories, unfiltered conversations, and of course, answering all of your burning questions, all in the way of simplicity and keeping it real, so that you can create your own version of your healthiest life. Let's do it. Hi guys, welcome back to the show today. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm really excited for this episode. This has been a question that comes in a lot and phrased in so many different ways, especially the last 7 or 8 years. This is a topic that I feel so passionate about, especially as I've been in the season of having babies and having young kids in the house. This has taken my own passion around food to the next level. So the questions that always come in are like, can you talk a little bit more about your method or your theory, or what is your strategy around feeding your babies so that they can go on to be kids that eat great, that eat a wide variety of real food, that are not picky, and that also teaches them a way to think about food for the rest of their life that is not complicated. To me, it's been this big journey of like, what do I want to give my kids that I didn't have? It's that peace and that clarity around food in terms of, is it real? Is it not? I think it just clears up so much confusion. It gets rid of any need for diets or fads or trends. And I know that that's going to be ever present in their life, as it has been in my own life, as it has been in all of our lives. The vehicle may change and the trend and the fad of the moment will always change. But I think giving our kids a way to cut through all of that crap, to cut through all of the noise and the distraction, like what a gift that is. And that is always what I remind myself when I am cooking for my family. It's nothing complicated. It's a very basic and simple, especially at this stage of life. But I think to myself on the days that I do feel tired or that I can't quite think of something, or like, man, maybe it would just be easier to grab a pizza tonight. But then I think, what would I like them to know about food, and how do I want their bodies to feel? And this is the biggest gift that I could ever give them, is that sense of peace and that sense of confidence in their own bodies, in how their bodies work and how we want to feed them and how we take care of them. It's really a sign of self-respect, I think, in a lot of ways. And because I have spent decades now teaching adults how to make that transition to real food, and how much of a process that can be for some adults, because we have these emotional connections to food and the ways that we grew up and what food was used for in our home growing up. And like, was it a reward? Was it this thing that was always talked about? Was it talked about in a negative way? Was your own body talked about in a negative way, or your parents talking about their own bodies in negative ways? There's so much wrapped into it that, to me, thinking about, okay, if I have spent decades teaching adults this, what if we could start with our kids? They never would have to go through all of that learning and pain, and they grow up eating real food. Like, what a gift that their digestion is great, their energy is great, their skin is great, they feel happy, they're balanced, their blood sugar is stable. Like, to me, there is no better gift I could think to give. And it starts young. It really does. I have seen personally so much success because I'm willing to do the work. It's a big value in our family of eating well and being healthy and taking care of yourself. So it's a priority for sure. But I also think that there's a piece of this that doesn't get talked about as much, which is when you are able to start young, you really have so much more control over two things in particular: your baby's taste buds and also their digestion. And when those two things are working really well, when their taste buds are really open and accepting of new foods and willing to try different things, it makes it so much easier as they get into the toddler stages, they get into being younger kids, that they don't really go through stages of being super picky. And again, every child is different. This is the only experience that I have personally, is now I have 3 kids, and they all have 3 different personalities. They all eat, slightly different things or have preferences for slightly different things. But overall, they're not picky kids. Overall, they eat vegetables at every meal. Overall, they eat good amounts of protein. Overall, they have great digestion, no skin stuff, not a lot of autoimmune stuff going on, because I have invested the time up front. And I think a lot of that comes from how you start them off as babies. I want you to know there is this magic window of the first 18 months where our babies' taste buds are very receptive to trying many different types of food. And I think a lot of parents don't realize that. It comes up pretty quick. You still have a really young baby, and especially if it's your first child, it's like there's been a huge transition and so many changes in your life going on. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, they're like 6 months old. I'm hearing that it's time to eat. This is so overwhelming. How do I do this? Most of us have never been taught as adults how to eat. And so looking at this perfect angel baby that has a clean slate, it can feel really overwhelming. Even knowing what I do for work and as my job and as my passion, I looked at my sweet son, was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess this up. And hopefully the things I'm going to share today, tips and things I've learned along the way of going through this 3 separate times with 3 separate children and 3 separate personalities and 3 separate taste buds. There's been a few things that have just held steady no matter what. And I wanted to share what those things are and ultimately to get everybody in the family on the same page so that I am not cooking separate meals. I am not making nuggets for my kids. I am not catering to their every whim and need. And by the way, I'm not judging you if that's where things are. It just may be we have different priorities on things. And because this is my passion, this is what I've been wanting to figure out. If we start them out this way, what's the impact of that down the road? And I'm happy to say that it's worth the time and the effort. So if you do have young kids, and by the way, it's never too late to start changing some things in your house. It may take a little bit of time that's not going to feel super smooth or great, but I do think it is always worth being a little bit more intentional about your food, thinking about their blood sugar, thinking about their taste buds, just being the stewards of their bodies while they are young, and you are the one making the decisions what goes in their bodies and what doesn't. And I will also say that it's not about being perfect. I don't feed my kids perfect food. They have plenty of times when they're at birthday parties or they're at the beach and they want to get an ice cream that has 60 ingredients of random different things I would never give them. But I don't want it to be a hawk watching everything that goes in their mouth. I'm not. That's not the vibe I'm going for. It's not about perfection at all. This is just about like what you do most of the time, most of the meals, most of the days, the things that are the typical go-tos. If there's ways to influence the ways that they eat and the ways that they grow up around food, why not? Like truly to me, what a gift I feel like I am giving them for the rest of their life. So let's start when they are really young. I think that is the best time to start. If you have the option to do that, that is the way to go. Their taste buds are wildly open the first 18 months. And so experimenting with as many different types of real food as you possibly can in that window is going to pay off so much in the end. And I think that that's the thing, that if you can see the long-term vision here of never having to do separate meals, never where they can't eat out, or they can't eat on the go, or when you're on trips, or when you go to other people's houses, it's just not an issue. But it does take a little bit more intention, I think, in the younger years to set them up well that way. So number 1 would be, again, trying to get the most variety you can and focusing on foods that are not sweet. And I know there's so many methods out there to feeding a baby. I'm just sharing what has worked for me is that I do not focus on sweet foods. I do not focus on fruit first. In fact, I actually wait on fruit for the most part. There may be some blueberries here and there because I love the antioxidants and the fiber. And it's just an easy option to tear blueberries in half when they're really young. It's a great whole food option, or if you're on the go, if you're traveling, same things, like maybe a banana here and there. It's super soft in the beginning. So, sprinkle it in here and there. For the most part, I'm really dominating with savory foods and a lot of veggies, trying to get all the different veggies in there somehow, some way, and then focusing mostly on healthy fat. Healthy fat is so great for their brain development. It's so good for their digestion. Focusing on healthy fat and veggies first, and then adding in some protein as they get a little bit older. But I do not focus on fruit. I am not the mom that puts fruit in their lunches every day or on their dinner plate? No way. Again, I'm just speaking from personal experience here. Like, I want to keep those taste buds focused on the savory for as long as possible, because once they taste the sweet stuff, it's hard to convince them to be trying cottage cheese after that, or like a plain Greek yogurt. Keeping in mind that it's not that fruit is bad, and it's not that we're keeping it away from them. Of course, like sprinkle it in here and there, or when it's the option that's quick and easy to grab and go. But for the most part, when you're first starting to feed them, focusing on the healthy fats and focusing on the savory foods, veggies would be first. That's the way I have seen the most success. As they're starting out, maybe you're doing purees and it's veggie purees, or it's avocado mixed with some cooked broccoli, or it's just plain avocado mashed up, or roasted sweet potato, things that are soft. And then once they're starting to get some teeth, food that they can chomp on a little bit, but not chokeable. I start with purees because I want to be very gentle on their system. I also start really slow. Maybe we're practicing with one type of food. There is no rush. I think that's a huge misconception before I get into some of these details about this, is that there's time. Just take it slow. If you don't feel ready at 6 months and your baby's not looking at your food and really getting curious about what you're eating, it's okay. Take it slow. Even though the recommendation is to start doing food, you do not need to like jump off the cliff. You can start very small and manageable. You're almost just practicing for yourself as an adult, getting in a different routine, a different rhythm, figuring out what's going to work high chair wise, bib wise, what's going to be the good setup for you to make this work as a family and not have it be this super overwhelming thing. So just going slow. I think that's something I felt very rushed about with my first, is like the doctor saying this, and then we need to start then. And the truth is their bodies are growing and they need to start easy, start with soft foods, start with things that are super easy to digest while their digestive system is still forming. So it's about being gentle and slow, and then working your way up from there. Maybe you start with a snack, a time of day where there's not really a feeding, or whenever works for you. There's so many ways that you can do this. This time around, 6 months came. I'm like, not ready yet. We're not ready. I think I didn't start feeding her until she was maybe around 7 months. And it was just a really slow progression, so that now she just turned a year and we're still doing lunch and dinner. We haven't quite added breakfast yet. And that's something I probably would do in the next couple of months. And there's not a lot of rush. And I feel like that is not talked about very much, that you can go slow. And I would definitely recommend that. To start, you're doing the veggies and then including like a little bit of here and there. Examples of this would be like grass-fed ground beef. And then you can do tacos for the whole family, or we do a lot of grilled salmon. That's a quick, easy protein, or even baked salmon, plain yogurt, things like full fat cottage cheese, or shredded chicken from an Instant Pot, or rotisserie chicken. Broccoli can be one of the easiest things. Like, I always have broccoli in the freezer, because you can just do a quick boil on that and then mash it with a little bit of grass-fed butter, and then you're getting good healthy fat and the veggie, and it tastes delicious. You're teaching them veggies taste good. Their taste buds are coming alive, and feeding them as much wide variety as you can of these like very nutrient dense grounding foods is great. Quick, easy foods like avocado, a roasted sweet potato, cucumbers, peppers, scrambled eggs. I am a fan of starting with the egg yolk. And I talk about this in my baby food files, which is, if you're wondering like exactly what to make and what are these different recipes and what about every month there's something different and where should they be starting and where are they developmentally ready, I have a full guide of all my favorite baby food recipes broken down month by month, as well as the why behind it. Here's why we're focusing on this type of food. Here's why we start with the egg yolk and not the full egg first. We're aware of sensitivities and allergies. Just want to keep a pulse on it, so you know what to watch for. So I have that full guide. I'll put that in the show notes, because that would be a great pairing to this episode of like specifically what to do. But there's plenty of foods out there that you don't need a recipe for. You could be eating, just pulling stuff out of the fridge, and maybe you're boiling some vegetables to make it soft for them, or blueberries sliced up, things like that. I think there are so many different ways you can go, especially when life is busy and you don't feel like you have time to be making baby food from scratch or making full recipes. For some of you, I know you would love to do that. And I felt the same way. So that's why I did the baby food guide, is like going through this process. With my first son, I was like, gosh, it'd be so helpful if this was all in one place. If somebody just told me what to do, if my end goal is to get them to eat real food and to get them to eat the same things that we eat as a family, yes, please sign me up. Show me the road to not having picky eaters, and that my kids will love food and that they appreciate food and they have a great relationship to food. They see it as a beautiful thing. Feeding themselves is a sign of self-respect, and like the ways that they love their body and can show up to their life with full energy and feeling good because of it. Yes, sign me up. Things that I don't focus on. I am not a huge fan of doing tons of fruit. I think as they get older, I use it in certain occasions where it's more dessert at the end of the meal, or if we're kind of out and about and there's some fruit and that's an easy thing, great. It's just not the thing that I dominate with most of all. I want to keep those taste buds open and liking the savory again for as long as possible. It's inevitable that they will start getting really into fruit and really into sweets. Here's how I have set it up in my family is that in the morning, they have breakfast that is more protein based with berries. We do berries a lot, frozen blueberries. We buy them at Costco or the huge bulk containers of organic frozen blueberries. We mix them into yogurt, or when they're in season, fresh berries on the side. They're the most healthy for their blood sugar and have the most antioxidants and have great amounts of fiber. Like they're very much a superfood. And so we do berries in the morning, but it's always paired with some sort of protein. So whether that's scrambled eggs or a chia seed pudding or peanut butter on a toast, and it's a hearty gluten-free bread. That method I started when they were babies, of getting used to having very balanced blood sugar through their meals with some sort of protein or healthy fat and a veggie, at least in lunch and dinner. And the fruit comes into play. Probably the mid-morning snack is a piece of fruit, or I send them to school with some fruit that's sliced up and they love it. And then also maybe in the late afternoon, if they're looking for a snack, we'll do fruit and maybe some cheese or something to help balance that out. That's the role that fruit plays, at least in our house. And everybody obviously is free to pick and choose what feels right to you. But I find that in keeping more of the emphasis on other types of food, it just keeps them open to trying new things and being hungry enough, honestly, to eat lunch, being hungry enough to eat a dinner when they have full access to a pantry or a snack closet and they could just grab whatever they want and package snacks. That's just my take on things. This is not something, again, that's rigid or perfect. Like oftentimes in the summer, when it's hot outside, of course, they're going to be eating much more fruit than they do probably in the wintertime, or we do some smoothies. But again, it's just thinking about the balance of it overall and thinking about their taste buds, and that it's just something that's not completely unchecked. I feel like in my house, as I was growing up, you could have as much as you want for any amount of time you wanted. And then as an adult, I really had to learn that, like, okay, I don't actually feel great when I do that. Either it hurts my digestive system or it's just pure sugar. And then I'm always hungry and then wondering why I'm hungry. I wasn't taught about balancing blood sugar, pairing it with some sort of protein or healthy fat. So that's just something as they get older that can be a helpful thing if they're not started out eating only fruit. And a lot of like the packaged pouches and the puffs, like you really have to look at it because for the most part, they're going to be fruit dominant because that is what most kids like. And so I just think it's an intentional thing to look at and be aware of. There are a couple of great brands that dominate with healthy fats or veggies and don't have a ton of fruit or sugars in them. And those are always great, you know, for on the go. If it's something that you're doing every single day, then it is, I think, definitely worth gearing towards the ones that have less of that as their dominant food. And same with things like those teeter crackers that people use. And there's different types of puffs. Those are more like entertainment. So I kind of do this like slow progression, purees. And then once they have some chomping foods and things they can hold, it teaches them the art of self-feeding. And I have found that they usually like that, prefer that better than being spoon-fed stuff over and over again. But doing a mix of it, some stuff with the spoon, obviously like yogurt or cottage cheese, I'm not like letting them feed themselves with that, but mixed in with cucumbers or sliced peppers they can hold, or it's roasted broccoli or roasted cauliflower, roasted carrots, you know, things that they can pick up, avocado sliced into cubes. They feel a little bit more independence, I think, in that way, and a little bit more ownership in terms of what they are, you know, starting to feed themselves. So just my take on this. And I think after 3 kids, it's really interesting to see this play out as they get older and older. Of course, they love, you know, popsicles and sweet treats, and we have ice cream. They have baked goods all the time that I make. It's not that sugar is bad, but I think really kind of minimizing it until they're around 3, talking about sweeter things and desserts, that up until 3, the sweet stuff that they do get is mostly fruit or applesauce or smoothies, things like that. They really feel like that is a treat when they've been eating mostly savory foods their whole life. There's always like this rush, it seems, to add in the most food as possible, and then giving them adult food and giving them sweets and giving them sugar and giving them gluten. That's a whole different conversation, but it's something that I do cover in the baby food files of how to go about introducing those things so that it's not that they're bad foods. We don't want to develop that relationship, but just a healthy, balanced relationship with food, a healthy, balanced way to look at food, that they love eating, that they love food. That is something that's so important, while also having, of course, healthy cells, healthy digestion, not a bunch of immune stuff or inflammatory stuff going on with their skin or their body or their insides. It can all be connected back to food, and intentionally thinking about how we're feeding them versus throwing things that are quick and easy and whatever's on the go without a lot of thought. I usually see that lead to a little bit more frustration down the line as like, why won't they eat? Why are they so picky? And so I think a lot of this is, if you have the time, if you're in this season of life where your kids are small or they are babies, doing what you can to help protect their bodies, to help lead their bodies, help their bodies grow really well, help them to develop this great appreciation and love of food and all the different colors and textures and flavors, and seeing that as a fun value that you're bringing into their lives. That is really what it's all about. So if you do have questions or you're wanting to learn more on this, again, the baby food files is my guide. I think it's like 50 pages long. I mean, there's so many recipes in there, as well as the quick, easy ideas like a scrambled egg, doing this with the avocado, or different pairings that are quick and easy, as well. If you want to make them baby muffins, if you want to do some quick, easy pancakes, here's different soups and things that the whole family will be able to eat. That is what I feel so passionate about sharing. Like, what are the things in real life that make this doable to have your kids eat real food, have them feel great, have you feel great of where your time and energy is being spent, especially in the kitchen, that it's always going to feel like it's worth it and worth doing, versus spending time and it seems like they're not eating anything or they don't like anything. That's what we're trying to avoid. So I'll put that in the show notes below. You can go check it out. It's something that I pull out and have pulled out after every kid I have had. How do we do this again? You know, it's like such a specific window of time, and one that I'm in right now that has been really fun to look back for the third time and be like, yeah, that's exactly what to do. And at this point, Rosie, she's following along with the rest of them. Like, she eats everything. I think there's been one thing she didn't love, which was a papaya when we were in Hawaii. And that's been like the one food that she won't eat. She eats tuna. She eats salmon. She eats sardines. She loves things that you would never really think a baby would be into. She loves ground beef. She loves broccoli is her favorite thing with a little bit of butter. So it is possible, and it makes life so much easier. And it doesn't have to be done in the way that we see it done. Kids just eating whatever, whenever, whatever is quick, whatever is easiest. You spend so much money on packaged snacks that don't actually fill them up. And I just think there's a different way to do things than what we have been modeled and what we've been taught and what the norms in society are around feeding ourselves as adults, but then also feeding our children, and really making a shift and change, like, generationally into their health and how they grow up and how they will feel around food for the rest of their life. To me, that is the biggest gift that I could ever think to give them. I hope that this helps, just seeing a little sneak peek inside my brain and the things that go on and my process around things. It has been such a joy in my life to feed my kids and document the process, and just happy to report that on the other side, there is a way to do it where it doesn't have to be this struggle all the time, that there are things we can do and ways we can influence and ways that we can really lead our kids in big and small ways. And I think it really does start with the things on our plate, the things in our kitchens, and how we are around food, that you as an adult are eating that way, you know, that you have those things on hand and you're modeling yourself the ways that you want them to eat too, I think is huge. So I hope this is helpful to get a little sneak peek. Let me know what questions you might have as you listen to this. I would love to know. Come over and find me on Instagram at Simply Real Health. And I would love to chat more about this. This is one of the things I love most in life, is getting to talk through these things and thinking about this impact in future generations. I love you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you back here next week. If you enjoyed this episode and want more like it, make sure you're subscribed to the Simply Real Life podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and maybe share it with a friend or two. That would mean the world.